Hello and welcome back to Coast FC, the Canadian soccer podcast focused on all things CPL, Canadian Championship, and more. My name is Felipe Ajejo.
And I'm my Rice.
And we are back to our regularly scheduled programming this week, going over all of the matches that happened in match week 20 of the CPL. Now, a bit of a weird match week, but because for 90 minutes, it looked like it was going to be probably one of the most boring match weeks of the entire season. But then the added time added extra drama and extra excitement and made it one of the most memorable, I think, weekends and match weeks of the CPL. That is, if you stuck around. If you switched off your TV before added time, then you missed yourself quite an ending in the majority of the games, honestly.
Yeah.
All of the games. So, definitely, a lesson to stick around till the very end of the whistle, especially in the CPL. But Mike, we're going to start, I think, with the match that had the most hype going into it, and in the end, that match that delivered the least amount of excitement out of all four of the matches. That was York United against Forge FC. Before we jump in, though, just a quick reminder to follow us on all of our socials at Coast to Coast FC, as well as finding us on YouTube, because we're going to be uploading the visual aspect of our podcast there as well. But yeah, let's talk about the 905 derby here between York United and Forge FC, because it was a 0-0 affair in the end. And not all 0-0s, I think, are boring necessarily. There are
sometimes not, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they can be exciting, though I think in this particular case, you could argue that it was a little bit of a boring 905 derby, especially considering what we've been spoiled to in recent iterations of the 905 derby, where there's a lot of goals and a lot of excitement. And this one, it just kind of felt like both sides really didn't know how to break the other down, especially I think Forge really looked disjointed in the attack and struggled to break down that York defense. I don't know if the lack of Kwasi Poku is already starting to maybe hit a little bit for Forge FC of not having that kind of player in the forward line, or maybe it was some issues further down the pitch. But what did you make of the kind of lack of attacking intent from both sides?
Yeah, I think York they shifted things up a little bit back from their back three to a back four. And we'd spoken about how York's biggest test now is to get over that sort of little brother syndrome against especially Forge, and see how they would compete going up against the big boys going into the end of the season when the pressure's really on after such a great start. And yeah, not fantastic in the final third from either team, but I think coming out of this game, York will be pretty happy with the fact that how well they did limit things, and how they struggled, how they forced Forge into struggling, really getting into that final third, and they tried to put a little bit of pressure on the defense and do things going further forward, but their defense has been that big talking point, really, in a lot of ways, about how York has changed so much this season. And with the shifts that have gone on going into this match, I think that's, as a neutral, it wasn't much fun to watch. But I think as a York United fan and Ben Mora is probably looking at that thinking, actually, right, well, we can make all these shifts and we're still pretty solid. Now, what can we do in those final third going into the playoffs when it is sort of do or die 90 minutes and we got to get this right?
Yeah, that's true. I think, York probably would have wanted to take maybe a little bit of a better result from this, given the form that they have going into this compared to the form that they had before, and especially going into 905 derbies. But I think overall, they can be pretty pleased with the points. There wasn't really many big chances to really speak about. There was that one right at the very end when Austin Ritchie kind of, got it down in the box. Still a tough opportunity, but really that's the biggest one. Maybe Parra in the first half.
Yeah, he had a couple of breaks into the box, didn't he, where it just didn't test Vincenzini at all and didn't quite make a cross.
Exactly. Again, not much to necessarily write home about in terms of chances, but I think York will probably feel like the side that should have maybe eked it between the two, though it still was pretty close. Forge, the attack, at least personally, kind of disappointed me a bit.
Mm.
Obviously it was going to be a tough test against a very well disciplined, a completely new look York United defense compared to the last time
Yeah.
that they faced York United. So I feel like, all things considered, it's understandable that they didn't have the best of days, but even still, it felt like just the movements weren't quick enough, the
Mm.
passes weren't quick enough, and it made it a bit difficult for Forge to break down what has now become a very stubborn defensive
Mm.
side in the league. And I think Forge now are kind of, without, Quasi Poku, I feel like that's a easy excuse to say, oh, you're not scoring as much because, Quasi Poku is now left for Belgium,
Mm.
when they've shown that they can still score without Quasi Poku
Yeah.
in the side. So it's not just the fact that they don't have Quasi Poku. I feel like it's a bit of a more like innate issue in the way that they're playing right now. And I think it actually starts all the way from the back and the defense.
Mm.
Because what I've noticed, I noticed in the game against Vancouver FC that even though Forge didn't win that match, I did notice this quite a bit. And I still noticed it in this game against York United, that the defense, the way that Forge play, they want to build out from the back. They want to, pass it to the center backs from the goalie, from
Yeah.
goal kicks. They want to build that from the back. But you apply a little bit of pressure and they start to buckle under it and they start to make
Mm.
mistakes. And it's very uncharacteristic for Forge because they are very used to being able to pass their way through lines of pressure
Mm.
and being able to deal with, the intensity that comes with building out of the back against a team that wants to win it up high. So I was a little surprised to see these mistakes against Vancouver FC. Didn't really go punished, mostly because
No.
Vancouver FC were not clinical. In this game, it was almost very nearly punished. I mean,
Yeah.
the Ashinoni Janssen, don't know what he was thinking, bringing it
No.
out of the box and waiting till the last second to slide against a York United player to try to clear the
Mm.
ball or pass the ball. I don't know what was going through his head there, but almost gave way to a brilliant goal scoring opportunity for
Mm.
Mo Babul if it wasn't for a last ditch sort of tackle from Malcolm Duncan to kind of get the ball away from him a little.
Yeah.
It could have been much worse. But it just feels like that the defensive side isn't playing as fast and as quickly and as direct as maybe the attack and the midfield would want to. And maybe that's part of the problem because the ball doesn't get from the defense to the attack quick enough. It
Yeah.
allows the opposition to kind of reorganize themselves. And then, Forge are really good when they are playing quickly down the wings, through the central channels, overlapping, just kind of hammering
Mm.
home their attacks. And we didn't really get to see that in this match. What did you make of the whole kind of defense to the attack in Forge's play?
Yeah, I think on one hand, like there's a few more changes in that back line, goalkeepers being rotated, things like that. Maybe there's not that fluidity there between the group, and there's hesitations coming in, and you'd have to watch back more. But how much of the midfield ready for I'm not 100% sure, but they do. What the fault is, but they do, yeah, completely, like you say, look slower in dealing with things, and it's causing themselves to put themselves into difficult situations. And like you say, actually, Johnson nearly giving a huge chance away. It's so like uncharacteristically him in that moment. I guess I'm just thinking now, since we started, it just reminded me again of, I forget who Forge played around the time in the first Montreal game in the CanChamp, but maybe there just isn't that big don't want to overexert themselves and get themselves too injured, like with a big game coming up this week, and it's like, right, let's just make sure we're match fit rather than pushing ourselves too hard. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think that's a good enough excuse, but I don't know if that's maybe in the back of their minds.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. From what I know of Bobby, I don't think he would allow his team to take it easy against York just for the sake of the match against Toronto. And I think he kind of demands them to be at 100% sort of no matter what. But I'm sure the players and maybe some other staff maybe pulled their punches maybe a little bit just with that in
Mm,
mind. I think even sort of inadvertently, you have that in the back of your mind and sort of biasing your decisions,
yeah.
whether you're aware of it or not. I'm sure that had something to do with their performance, but yeah, I think overall it was just a little bit lackluster from
Mm,
them, and for they've been in such good form that it was, I think, more glaring for Forge, given the fact that they've been playing so well. But for York, I was really, really impressed with the defense.
yeah.
Defense looked really good, and especially considering that they had two young players as the pair of center backs. Like you said, they went from the back three to the back four, only two CBs, and it was, Higgins and Noah Batne that were the
Mm,
pair. And Higgins had a bit of trouble in the last time that he featured for York United. Hadn't had the greatest of performances, but I
yeah.
think this was easily probably his best performance in York United shirt now, and to be paired alongside Noah Batna, that I think has benefited Batna from pairing alongside Oswaldo Leon and pairing alongside Frank Stirring to kind of gain that more experience and to be able
Mm,
to be incredibly be the leader of the two.
yeah.
I think they had very impressive performances in
Yeah.
dispelling any dangers that kind of went into the box there. And I think even ahead of them, Elijah Kugby, he's been one of the more quiet, but still one of the most improved players under
Mm,
Benjamin Mora since he's taken over. He
yeah.
might not get a bunch of the goals or the assists or get all of the plaudits or the highlights, but for those that actually watch, he's quietly doing all of the work he needs to do effectively, just cleaning up, any dangers that might be coming their way, breaking down
Mm,
attacks, recycling possession, keeping the play going. He's been really, really good at that. And then the player who has been receiving a lot of plaudits as well is Juan Cordova in the midfield.
yeah. Oh, rightly so.
And rightly so. I feel like he was everywhere in this match,
Yeah.
from the fence to the attack and the midfield. He was popping shots, he was throwing crosses in, he was making tackles. He was
Mm,
absolutely everywhere for them. Probably the player of the match, in my opinion. But some really solid performances from York United, and I think that they can take a lot of positives out of this, especially considering that it's again against Forge FC.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Adekunle looks much more disciplined, like ready just to fulfill his role. Like he's not getting caught out by getting over adventurous and overexcited. He's not throwing in bad tackles. He's just working really hard in front of that back line, which has been vital. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember, was it Batney and Higgins getting thrown in together at the beginning of the year because of injuries, and
Yes.
it did look a bit okay. Let's see how this goes. And it's just so impressive with Batney. Like we've known, he's got the ability, he's got the potential there, but like you say, he's just looks like an absolute top quality like CPL centre back. And yeah, now Higgins has had a bit of time working in the team, and not so much just I mean, it was basically thrown in like a day or two after signing, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. He didn't have much time.
Yeah, so now he's had a bit of time to settle, and obviously with the new manager, it's the spine of this team looks really, really good, and they've got quality out wide as well, depending whether they play with the wing backs or this different systems. So yeah, it's really, really, really good stuff from York.
Yeah, and I think from a defensive point of view, Benjamin Mora will be doubly as impressed to keep a clean sheet against Forge FC, even though they are at home.
Yeah,
Because you look at the last 3 encounters that they have, and they've conceded, or not even 3, the last 5 encounters that they've had, and they've conceded a minimum of 3 goals
yeah,
against Forge FC. They and the 5th one back in July 9th, 2023, they conceded 4 at home.
mm,
The last time that they had a clean sheet against Forge, you have to go all the way back to May 6th, 2022. So nearly, I think, 10 matches back,
yeah,
10 iterations of the 905 Derby to see them have a clean sheet. So honestly, all things considered, a very good performance
mm,
from York United. And I feel like it's going to be one that they kind of take in stride and hopefully, continue to build on and continue to
yeah,
impress in what's been a really solid second half of the season for them. Forge will obviously be more disappointed given the fact that they drop a couple points at the top of the table, and
mm,
now things are looking extra tight because of Cavalry FC's result against Pacific.
yeah,
which no one will be happier about this being a boring draw than Cavalry. Now
Yeah,
there's only a few points between first and fourth, so it's getting really, really tight at the top.
really
And
tight.
it's a
Yeah.
really exciting time for the CPL right now, given that the top four, literally anybody could win the league at this point. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't remember a season being this close in recent memory in the CPL.
No, it's really exciting.
Genuinely the most exciting kind of tail end to CPL season we've seen in its short history. So we'll definitely keep looking at these teams as they continue through the rounds. But now let's move on to the second game of the match day, which was Halifax against Atletico Ottawa. Again, another match that looked poised to finish 0-0.
Yeah.
But in the end, actually finished 1-1 thanks to 2 goals in extra time. And with late goals comes late drama and even drama after the fact.
Mhm.
In the case of Atletico Ottawa, which we'll get to at the very end. But let's talk about the game itself, because Atletico Ottawa, going to Wanderers grounds is not an easy place to go. And we
No.
talked about how Halifax need to make good on their home advantage because they have so many home games left. Atletico Ottawa came in, and after having a little bit of a shaky period of play, have seemed to get back into the swing of things because it was a really impressive performance from Atletico Ottawa for 90 minutes, where they pretty much dominated the match for the majority, at least for the first 75, 80 minutes. It was relatively in Ottawa's favor. And they had a bunch of chances to score from. Amir Didic had a great chance. Roberto Campo had a couple of great chances as well, including one where he tried to chip Jan Filian and it just didn't spin the right way. But what did you make of Ottawa's performance in this match against Halifax?
Yeah, I think for me, to like maybe try and move a little bit harsher because hey, let's all jump on. Let's all jump on Gonzalez and see how we react. They do play the better side, and they've got the quality, and they are often the more dangerous. But their chances they're just not giving themselves like the opportunity to relax. And when teams can still know they're still in the game, as that time keeps building on, it's just adding more and more pressure to Ottawa because they've got the names, they've spent the money. So if you're not going out there and you're getting a goal or two to give yourself a bit of a cushion, a bit of authority on the game, all the other teams are going to be desperately trying to get back at you, and they're going to feel, right, we're still in this, because Ottawa aren't scoring as they should if you look at them on paper. And you can keep the ball as much as you want in the middle third and use defensive third, and you can try and break into the final third and not test the goalkeeper enough. And if that keeps repeating itself, then the other teams are always going to feel like there's one chance in it, and if we can take it, we're probably getting something out of this game.
Yeah, and I think because Atletico Ottawa, throughout the match, especially in the second half, were the team that were maybe didn't have as much possession. I think obviously when you go to Halifax and you're gonna have Halifax being the home side, they love to have possession. They love to keep possession, especially with a player like Caligari. So while it wasn't maybe comfortable in terms of possession, it never really looked like Halifax had all that many opportunities to actually go through and score. It felt like Ottawa, it kind of played into Ottawa's hands the way that Cargo likes to play, which is, kind of counterattack football, kind of absorb the pressure, and then as soon as they make a mistake, go and attack, and you have the quality to go and attack. So I feel like they will be a little bit disappointed that Halifax sort of played into the hands of Atletico Ottawa's plan, and they didn't sort of capitalize on it. Again, especially in that second half. I think the first half was rather, tame. I don't think there was a single shot on target in the entire first half.
No.
So yeah, definitely that one you could have slept through and you wouldn't have missed anything.
Yeah.
But the second one definitely couldn't have slept through, especially at the end, because we got some late goals in that one. Obviously, Sam Salter did really well on the left to kind of turn Dan Nimick and fire a really clinical shot into the top right corner. It looked to have, stolen the points away from home. again, I think on the run of play probably deserved if they would have
Yeah.
won that match, given how well they were attacking and again how it felt relatively comfortable for them. But Halifax did well to respond to it and not go down without a fight. And it's funny because I swear that last time that we saw this, it was also like 2 late goals. It was
Yeah, I think
also
so.
against Ottawa and Halifax last year towards the end of the season. Again, that was the one where Salter scored again a late
Yeah.
equalizing goal, and then a minute later, I think it was Thomas Geraldo who got the
Yeah, I
winner.
think that's right. Yeah.
So these two love to score late goals on each other
Yeah.
in the same match. But yeah, Halifax just about scraped that point back afterwards
Yeah.
with the penalty call. Dynamic, obviously one of the most lethal kick takers in the league.
Yeah.
Dispatches a fantastic penalty, and I think it really capped off a pretty good performance from Dynamic. He looked back to sort of his best in a sense from last season. Definitely improved performance from what we've seen this season. You could maybe have a bit of question marks on Sam Salter's goal, but aside from that moment, he looked really, really comfortable both in and out of possession, kind of commanding that back line. I mean, overall, it seemed like when Halifax did have the ball, it looked more like Halifax of last year
Yeah.
and and therefore it looked better
Yeah.
than we have from earlier this year. And although again, I don't know if they can come away with it saying they should have won, I think it was still a noteworthy performance, especially from the likes of Caligari and Rampersand. Rampersand coming back into the side and shows exactly why he's so important to the team because both of them really were controlling
Yeah.
the match and in terms of possession and also doing a lot of the dirty work defensively when Atletico Ottawa were trying to break. So a lot of impressive performances from Halifax. Do you think that Halifax come away with this satisfied with a 1-1 draw, especially with the late penalty?
I think if this was last season, yeah. This season, I think just because it started so badly for them, like they won't be satisfied with a point because they've got so much to catch up on. So to skew it slightly, but if you take it as if you ignore the rest of the season and just look at this one game, you think, okay, well, you're playing against a side that is competing for the league. Like it's a decent enough point. We haven't put ourselves under too much pressure. Like we looked decent as a group. It's still taking that bit of time to kick into gear up front, isn't it? Like there's the movement and the connections between them is still you can see it's still not quite there. Like the fact that the only shot on target came in the 96th minute from the penalty spot is sort of tells you so much. And I do like that they've gone back to this style, and I can see it improving, like, and getting back. And I hope that they still continue to work on this, and that they can identify the players that they want to keep that will continue in this system that will work really well. And I think it's too late for them this year to catch up to try and make the playoffs. But if you're looking at next season, like if you can end the season strongly with this style of play, you can get your players back up to feeling confident again, because I think their confidence was hit with the changes and some of the sort of the errors and the mistakes, which maybe weren't the worst thing, but they always got capitalized on. They got pounced on. If there was a minor mistake, they concede a goal and things like that. So it's looking slowly more and more back to the old Halifax, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like you mentioned, maybe a little bit too little, too late now, because they're now 9 points behind Vancouver FC in the last playoff spot. They are with a match in hand, so if they win their match in hand, they're only 6 points behind with 8 games to go. But they would need a lot to go into their favor, basically to have the rest of the bottom 3 teams to have
Keep
terrible
losing.
times and then to win a bunch of games. So it would take a bit of a fairy tale scenario for them to make it through, but it's not impossible.
No.
And in the end, you just gotta take it one game at a time and try to get results as much as you can. I think that for Halifax, it can't focus too much on the bigger picture right now because it might be a little disheartening You got to just take it game by game and see what happens, on the final day of the season. Kind of look up then at the board and see where you finish, because it'll be a long way back to the playoffs for Halifax for the rest of the season. So I think they just got to focus on the day to day and the game to game, and see what happens. But let's talk about the elephant in the room now.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's talk about the biggest drama from this weekend, which was Carlos Gonzalez's post-match availability after the game, because in the lead up to the penalty, there was a contentious moment of potentially an offside in play, as Massimo Ferran was found in behind, and then the sequence kind of played out, which I think was it Rampersand, or I forget who was that exactly got taken down, or Coimbra. I don't remember the exact player that was taken down, but the player was taken down at the edge of the box by an Ottawa player, and the referee, I think correctly, pointed to the spot for the penalty, which then then stepped up and dispatched.
Yeah.
Now
Manny
afterwards,
Aparicio knew it was a penalty, so
you could have seen just the guilty look on his face as soon as he saw whichever Halifax player it was go down. But yeah, so in the end, late equalizer. Obviously, the players and the team and especially the coach are going to be frustrated, given the fact they thought they just stole all 3 points, and now we're pegged back to only taking 1 point. But Carlos Gonzalez decided to take it one step further by making almost near conspiracy theory level claims after the match, saying that, and I wrote this down. I watched it back and I wrote the quote: "Today is a confirmation of what I have been feeling the last few months, that somebody doesn't want us to win the league. Today was a clear confirmation of those feelings." So essentially, and we've seen this before in football all over the world, but it's kind of like, woe is me. The world is out to get us. The referees are out to get us. And yada, yada, yada. Now, before we talked about the actual comments, obviously it was in the heat of the moment. You're frustrated. I guess you can sort of understand. I mean, you can't say those things. You can't.
Maybe his tinfoil hat was getting a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't lambast the league like that and expect no repercussions. They tried to make up for it with some clarifying comments. He basically said afterwards, he released a statement on the comments that he made, saying, "I want to apologize for the comments I made in the heat of the moment and reiterate that despite the mistakes or situations that we may feel are occurring against us as a club." So he still is doubling down on the fact that he feels like there are things going against them. "I reiterate that in no case I question the integrity of the people involved in these decisions, both the league, competition, or officials, and much less the integrity of the CPL as an organization. Hence, I want to clarify that I strongly believe in the goodwill of all parties involved in the development of the league." Now, how many drafts do you think that took to write that up? How much did Carlos Gonzalez fight to keep that opening part in it? Because clearly he was not wanting to go down without a fight, in terms of still reiterating that he feels like things are going up against them. But it was a good effort from Ottawa with that, but they still suffered from it, because the CPL then came out this morning at the time of recording on Monday morning that Carlos Gonzalez was fined. Undisclosed amount, but was fined, which was to be expected. But it was
fined. The CPL only want Forge to win, so he's been fined.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's clearly the only conclusion that you can rationally come to. But yeah, what did you make of this whole fiasco? Because I have my own thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours first.
This is a man who struggled last year at the end of the season with difficult results and the same problems happening over and over again, which saw his side drop out the playoffs. Gets a big backing. Lots of new players coming in, big players. and the pressure's gone right up again, and he's struggling to deal with it when it's not going all his way. I can see, like, yeah, it's a guy who's really concerned about the results aren't coming, and I don't doubt he's working incredibly hard to try and make them work. And when that doesn't turn into 3 points each week, I can only imagine how frustrating it must be for a guy who, I think, if they struggle, like, the club will move on from him if they don't get a trophy this year, with the amount of backing he's got and the fact that they aren't scoring like as well as you'd imagine they were expecting with the signings they bought as an ownership group that's brought in to give him that chance to move on from that ultra defensive counter-attacking style. Like, here is a selection of attacking players to go and win games, do it. And it's not working for him. It's not working for him regularly enough. They're not consistently enough, just blowing teams away. They're not consistently managing games as well as you would have hoped. And he's feeling the pressure, especially with York improving, especially with Forge and Cavalry being Forge and Cavalry. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely feel like maybe this is coming from a point of maybe a little bit of trauma because of what happened last season, where he's just kind of lashing out and blaming other things for the situation that he's finding himself in again, with extra pressure given, like you mentioned, the backing that he has. I don't agree, obviously, with this comment. No. I feel like even the offside call, don't know if it was offside. I was looking at it back. There's so many bodies in the way. Yeah. So many people. Like, you gotta, like, the linesman had like 8 people in line or in and around that line.
Let's face it. Even if it was, we've seen so many worse calls. Like, exactly. You can't go. That was targeting.
Yeah, he was like, that was a clear offside. I'm like, where was it? It was not clear whatsoever. And I watched it back quite a few times, and even still, even if it was offside, it wasn't like they immediately scored or got the penalty afterwards. Massimo Ferrin completely shrugged off Tier Walker. Tier Walker landed on his ass, and that was the opportunity that you could have had to stop the play. It wasn't like it was completely out of your control. You got shafted. You had the opportunity to clear the ball, and then obviously you had the opportunity to not foul the player.
Yeah, to not dive in. Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like you should look at those things before you worry about the referee's decision. But that's just me. But yeah, overall, I mean, again, we've seen this before in football. It's always a little bit embarrassing to kind of see it, especially as somebody that, we're not, Atletico Ottawa fans, but we are CPL fans. I don't really like seeing this kind of mentality in the CPL. It's this conspiratory mentality. It is funny to see, but also a little bit, I don't know. It's a little bit cringy.
In my opinion. It adds a nice talking point to a podcast, but otherwise,
that's true. As soon as it happened, as soon as I saw the comments, I'm like, oh, we got content. We have content this week. Let's go. Because, like, as I mentioned, it looked like it was going to be a pretty boring match week.
Yeah,
so,
maybe that's what he's doing it for. Like, we like, people around this league who work in this league, who cover this league, have to. They play each other 4 times a season. Like, you've got to throw in some extra bits every so often.
That's true. There's only so many storylines that you can try to hash out as is new, I'm pretty sure that's that wasn't the intention behind Carlos Gonzalez's comments. But if it was, thank you, Carlos, for giving us more content for the podcast and for all the people that are covering the league throughout the country. But yeah, I feel like overall, Carlos Gonzalez is going to be a little bit embarrassed by the comments that he's made. I am very curious to see how he will act now for the rest of the season, especially now that things are so tight. I wonder if we will see any other moments where he starts to lash out at maybe not officials, but maybe players or opposition players or opposition coaches. You never know. This man might become unhinged soon.
Yeah, I can't wait till he gets sent off. I mean, how he exits the technical area is going to be.
If he has any
like
of those moments,
like the entrance of a WWE wrestler leaving the
Leaving the Royal Rumble. Yeah. That's funny. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Cargo and Atletico Ottawa as the weeks go on. Let's move on now, though, to the third match of the match week, which was Cavalry FC against Pacific FC. Once again, another added time late winner in this one. This time courtesy of Dan Klump in the 91st minute for Cavalry FC to win it 1-0. That's 5 wins. 5 wins in a row for Cavalry, which is quite impressive, especially considering there's only 28 match days in the season, and you face every team 4 times, so it's hard to have some consistent wins in the league. So 5 victories in a row, starting to finally make up for all those draws that they had at the beginning of the season, because we were wondering when Cavalry FC were going to switch on, if it was going to be after the first quarter. It wasn't the first quarter. It wasn't even the second quarter. It was between the halfway point and now, where they finally are seeming to wake up and show us once again why Cavalry FC are one of the best teams in the CPL. It was a very dominant display against Pacific, specifically in the second half. I think first half, there weren't any good teams. I don't know what it is about what it was about first halves in these first 3 matches, but you could have literally skipped, I think, all 3 first halves and not missed pretty much anything from the games. Not a rule of thumb. I'm not telling the listeners to not watch the first half of games, because a lot of action can happen. It just so happened that this week nothing really did happen. But in the second half, Cavalry kind of, again, woke up and remembered that they are a very good footballing side, because they then sort of kicked into gear and really, really showcased how much better they are than Pacific at the moment. It could have easily been 2 or 3-0, even before Dan Klump's eventual winner, had it not been for heroics from Gazdov, who we will talk about in a little bit. But some really, really solid performances from Cavalry FC. Obviously, Ali Musi, he's been night and day for Cavalry since coming back. Such a solid, important player for Cavalry. And then Fraser Aird, one of my favorite players in the league, still putting on some big performances from the wing back. And that pair down the right is so good. I love watching the right-hand side of Cavalry FC play. But some pretty also impressive performances from the likes of Lowell Wright, who started up top this time. He had some, again, for a big stocky player, he's got some nice little footwork, and that
little break in the box is jinking
that
around players.
The little shimmy that he did was very nifty, very deft of him. Very nice to watch. But yeah, impressive from Lowell Wright to be leading the line. He got right into the fighting against the center backs, the 2 center backs of Pacific FC. I thought Valling also was impressive on the left side. Maybe didn't see as much. Maybe didn't see as much as Ali Musi and Fraser Aird on the right, but still did quite well on the left side. I think for me, the biggest turning point for Cavalry as well was putting Camargo back in at the beginning of the second half. I feel like, Mal Henry wasn't playing badly, but obviously doesn't have maybe the attacking nous of Camargo, given just the experience that Camargo has in the team and in that position. And I feel like he was a big turning point on how the attack just started to become more and more relentless going forward.
I was just trying to think of the word. Like, Camargo is that more relentless style of player. Mylon Reed's really technically gifted, like really fun to watch. But Camargo's got that as well. But he is, much more relentless and just hassles the defense much more, like just with his play. That's a really good one.
Yeah, he's a pest. He is a pest at times. I think it's that South American in him. Where they just I don't know, it's something about us South Americans. We just will not leave you alone. So determined, and they're the attacker and the defense. We're like mosquitoes, buzzing around all the time, looking for any mistake. But yeah, I think Camargo just kind of shifted them into another gear even more, and just kind of gave that bit more of aggression and pressing and attacking from the front. And as we mentioned, it should have honestly probably been a 2 or a 3-0 scoreline. It would have been tough for Pacific to kind of take back-to-back blowouts, but it kind of felt like that kind of game for Pacific, because while they had some moments, I guess. I mean, Baus had that kind of chance in the first half against Carducci. But it really was mostly one-way traffic from Cavalry FC, specifically in the second half. But Pacific,
22 shots to F4.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go. You only need to look at that stat to look. 8 shots on target to 3.
Yeah. So I mean, give Pacific credit, because usually if they their shots are sort of maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5 on target, and you're getting frustrated that they're just shooting from range and missing the target. At least the chances they were creating, they were testing the keeper at least. But it was much less.
Yeah. And they did try to switch things up. Obviously, I mean, probably one eye on the Canadian Championship semifinal against Vancouver Whitecaps tomorrow, a Tuesday at time of recording. That's probably why we didn't see the likes of TMG or Kunle Dada Luke. So we started to see Chichetti in the midfield, Christian Greco-Taylor, Mukambilwa back on his more natural right side. And we saw the hero of TSS Rovers from earlier this season, Devin O'Hay, start up top in, unfortunately, what was a graveyard shift, because I think I barely saw him at all in that game, especially in the second half. But it was some decent performances, specifically from the younger players from Pacific. I think those are the positives that you can take out of, because you look at Christian Greco-Taylor coming in on the left, and you look at the task that he has in front of him, which is Ali Musi and Fraser Aird.
Yeah, exactly. It's not.
And you think this guy is going to get skinned. This guy is going to get
throwing him in at the deep end,
like Christmas turkey. But he didn't. He actually did pretty well. I think he won 4 out of 7 duels, I think is what I saw in the stats, and he did pretty well to try to stop what is arguably the most dangerous wing duo in the league, in Ali Musi and Fraser Aird. So I was quite impressed with Christian Greco-Taylor's performance overall, and I thought that he showed the maturity of a player that is ready to take this next step in his career. And so I think, given the circumstances of what he was facing, he did relatively well. But he was helped in part by what was, for me, the man of the match, easily, in Emil Gazdov, because wow, Emil Gazdov's made some ridiculous saves in this match.
He's unbelievable how much he's come on from in 2 seasons.
I can't believe this is the same Donny. I can't believe it's the same guy.
Looks just so confident and so and in so much control. He's not this young kid behind the defensive line that's just throwing out big saves. He's controlling the defense as well. His whole round game is just it's just shot through. He's just skipping seasons of development and just cram them all into these 2.
I guess that was the whole plan, right? At the beginning of we'll give this young keeper, it's gonna probably be a rough start, but eventually, once he finds his feet, he's gonna turn into something special. And it looks like that's exactly what is happening for Pacific FC, because it could have easily been a much uglier scoreline if it wasn't for him. I mean, that save in the 88th minute, I think it was against Klomp. The save on the Ali Musi free kick, he was just everywhere, flying left and right like a cat across that goal. And super impressive from Emil Gazdov. I do feel bad that he in the end couldn't keep the clean sheet that he was working so tirelessly for. But it does bode well for Pacific that they have such a good young player like Emil Gazdov. I would be, after this season, I'd be surprised to see if he sticks around after the season, just because, again, I think he's 20 years old,
Yeah,
and
exactly. He's still so young.
he's still so young, and especially for a keeper, you have a keeper that's almost like a toddler for keepers, given when they typically go into their prime. So I wouldn't be surprised if some maybe some Bundesliga 2 or Bundesliga Regionalliga, I think it is called, the third division, start to look around, sniff around him, since he's German as well. So we'll see. But yeah, very impressive performances from Emil Gazdov in that match. But beyond that, is there anything else positive that you can kind of take away from this specific game?
I look at this team just every time. It's like, well, you're playing with 5 central midfielders each game, and like there's a couple of players in the squad who also can come back from injury, but they need to work on how they're building this squad next year, because they can get decent players in. They had decent players at the start of the year, but it just wasn't balanced. Like they need to do something there, and they need to probably look into hiring someone who can judge the right striker to come into this team and who could fit into this system, because they're going out and they're signing players, and they've done things this year and last season, and they're struggling. They're going to end up moving on from Rion Moore because he's struggling this season as well. Like I'm not sure if he got a 1 or 2 year contract with them, but if they're going to bring in another striker, they need to do a little bit more homework, and they might want to start now.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is they need a striker that is a bit more proven, I think, than their last two. I mean, like, you could say Issa Ngara was proven in the league beforehand, and didn't work out. So maybe even being proven in the league isn't good enough anymore.
They also need to identify what they're going to be. They wanted to be this possession-based team last year that will dominate games and try and win it. This year they're having much less possession than their opponents quite often.
Yeah,
so they've got a lot of sort of identifying themselves to do over this.
Yeah, especially in the last few matches, I've noticed that Pacific has been switching things up a lot in the way that they attack and the way that they build up. It's not the traditional way that Pacific has been playing lately. So yeah, I think there's going to be some soul searching for Pacific in this coming summer, especially for James Merriman, because he has a nice big fat contract, but he's not going to want to coast. He's going to want to actually build something.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to say, in the 2 seasons, season and a half, I guess, technically, since that contract, he hasn't been doing all that much to kind of showcase why they gave him that lucrative contract at Pacific. But hopefully he can turn things around. I mean, you look at some of the signings that they've made, and you think that they're, especially defensively, I think defensively more than anything, like you had 3 players in the defense that you wouldn't have seen at the beginning of the season, and they defended pretty admirably for 90 minutes. Like, obviously could have been worse if it wasn't for Gazdov, but they did their part in trying to make it as difficult as possible for Cavalry. You look at Juan Quintana, my fellow Colombian. We talked about Christian Greco Taylor. You also have Kevin Chichetti, the Argentinian.
Dominguez came in at the DM as well. Like, he didn't play in this one, obviously, but they brought in players and they're giving them opportunities. So it's just identifying who's the right ones to keep for next year. But there have been some defensively. They have been good. You can't knock them this season. I mean,
attack.
It's just
the attack needs so much work. What they genuinely need is, not only do they need a striker, they need an actual proper 10. They need
wingers, they need
the entire front 4,
a whole new facelift up top.
Yeah, exactly. Just basically an entire new front 4. Definitely desperately needed. I also love, as a side note, saying Kevin Chichetti's name, and then I saying it that way. I don't know if that's the way you say it, but it reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever watched New Girl before.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like what's his name? Oh, I'm blanking out. The Jewish guy.
Oh, Schmidt.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Schmidt. The way that he likes to say Cecilia's name, Cecilia, it makes me feel like I'm doing that. Chichetti. But yeah, back on point. Yeah, Pacific. Need a lot to work on. It might be again a case of too little, too late for the season for them in terms of playoffs. So we'll definitely need to do some soul searching ahead of 2025.
Yeah.
But now let's move on to the fourth and final game, and I think just based on goals, probably the most exciting game because it also had a late winner. Of the entire weekend. It was Valour FC against Vancouver FC. It was Mike, your darlings against a team that I covered. So I don't even know if it was a little bit personal, but it was definitely. I think we were both more invested in it than perhaps other matches. And another game with late drama, another late winner. This time, courtesy of Amon Salouf, and probably the most exciting one out of all of them, just given the circumstances, because for the last half hour of the match, Vancouver FC were defending with 10 after James Cameron received his marching orders off a second yellow. And if there was any team that was going to win that match, it looked like it was going to be Valour. In the end, it wasn't. What do you think went wrong?
This one was funny, and I was watching the game. And obviously, James Cameron gets sent off, and I'm like, right, come on, Val, come on, we can do this, But they struggle, and they're struggling. They're just like Vancouver are defending pretty well, I think, for 10 men against Valour, and it got to the point where just like this is just not happening, is it? It's just not happening. Right, I'm just gonna go and grab a drink, and I'll just have a beer and watch the end of this game in a grump. Come back and Sean Hundle scored. I'm like, this is incredible. Okay, right. And then a few more minutes tick by, and I'm like, maybe that worked. I don't need another. I'm going to get another drink. Went back. Oh, they lost 2-1.
Oh, no. The drink giveth and the drink taketh away.
Yeah. It was the karmic god saying, no, you don't need 2 beers.
One, that was it. You just overdid it. It was only one. You only needed one.
But they did, like, you got to give Vancouver credit, and especially Callum Irving. But they really did defend brilliantly, like going down to 10 men, and Valour went for it, but at no point for the up until the goal, very few points did you actually think that's a really, like, they're creating really good opportunities. It was just they didn't have much fluidity like in the team at all. It just, and then obviously the sucker punch in the last few seconds of the match.
Yeah, so it genuinely was a sucker punch because it was completely against the run of play. Came out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
But it decided the whole affair. And yeah, I think you mentioned Callum Irving is a great one because, talking about great goalkeeping with Emil Gazdov, Callum Irving shows that on the other side of the spectrum, the old dog still got it. Callum Irving, and just had a very good showing, a very good, so a couple of great saves as well to keep a side in it. I also feel like Benate and Hundal probably should have done better in some of those opportunities.
Yeah.
But still, you have Callum Irving there, pretty much reliant as always in between the sticks. And that kind of gave way to the very end where Amon Salouf got that winner. And for me, it shows overall a great show of mentality from Vancouver FC, because that's something that we really haven't seen lately, is kind of that mental fortitude. That's something that's been an issue with them, and I've been calling it out week to week with them, is that they just kind of buckle under pressure sometimes, and they start to make mistakes, like individual errors that cost the team, and then they kind of have a breakdown, and then they start playing erratically, and they look more like a League One side than a proper CPL side when they play that way. But no, they defended valiantly when James Cameron went off. I thought James Cameron getting that red, it was like, here we go again. This is Vancouver FC shooting themselves in the foot. It's the same old story. But no, they did actually quite well to deal with the pressure from Valour and throwing everything forward. And then it was the birthday boy. It was Amon
Yeah.
Salute that came up the victor. Fantastic play, solo play from him. Matteo, people will not remember, Matteo Campagna got the assist on that by a 5-yard sideway pass on the very right of the pitch, because Amon Salute did absolutely everything else, left
Yeah.
defenders for dead, and rifled a pinpoint shot into the bottom corner of the near post to win it. Really hilarious celebration at the
Yeah.
end, because you saw everybody jump and celebrate, hug, and then you see Ashton Gobby
Oh, it was so cringe, man.
very slowly kind of jump in half-heartedly. Yay! Like,
Yeah.
almost
He's
felt like
at the
somebody
back, like,
told
I
him.
don't know what to do here.
Yeah, it almost felt like somebody told him, Ashton, go celebrate.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I don't know what to do. But bless his heart, right? Anyways,
Yeah.
to be a part of the team and be a part of the celebration. But yeah, really, really fantastic goal from Amon Saluf. And that's
Yeah.
what they've needed, honestly.
Mm.
They've been crying out for lately is
Yeah.
that kind of difference maker, that game changer is how I called it in my analysis. As
Yeah.
like the proper game changer, that spark to kind of, when things are tough, somebody has to kind of bear the weight of the expectations and the team on their shoulders and say, I can turn this on its head. And that's exactly what Amon Saluf did. Like I mentioned, out of nowhere, he got that ball and turned what was looking more like a loss. It was looking like Valour were going to eventually find that winner. And at the very best, a draw, to the most unlikely win you might ever see from Vancouver FC this season. So superb from Amon Saluf. I think I'm so excited to be able to see him more up close this season. As I mentioned throughout the time we've done this podcast, he's one of my favorite players in the league.
Yes.
So hopefully this kind of gives him a fresh slate to kind of dazzle us once more, as he did at the beginning of last season for Pacific, and maybe kind of secure that playoff spot for Vancouver FC. But as much as one player was shining by being on the pitch, there was one player that was missed more than anybody
So much, yeah.
on the other side, which was Temi Antonoglu for Valour FC. Wow, have I not seen such a difference in a team with that one player than when Temi doesn't play for Valour FC. And I think that goes to prove what we were talking about last week of how thin this success of Valour FC is, how flimsy it is, where it really needs, like, Phil Dos Santos really needs everyone to perform to get them across the line, and everyone that is available to be able to kind of pull out those performances. And you don't have one player in Temi Antonoglu who has been probably their most consistent performer throughout the season. And without him, Valour FC looked so flat in the attack. And even when they were throwing things forward after Vancouver FC went down to 10 men, it still didn't look all that convincing without him there.
No, they just lost a third of a pitch. Like right in the way they chatted about it on one sucker. Like they got the goal, got that opportunity where Sean Hundle tries to chip Callum Irving, where it is balls over the top, and they've got to break the line and try and beat the offside trap. And they were limited to that and trying to build things up down the right. But Alacon had to go to the left. Dante Campbell's not the overlapping wing back. He's like, so everything just got shuffled around, and Jordan Haynes comes on in the second half, so it gives him that sort of left-sided player, but he's nowhere near the player that Antonoglu is. And like, he worked hard and he tried to get down the line a couple of times, but he's not got the quality to really threaten the defense too much in that attacking third. And it's just it's such a big loss, like, and it just affected how the team can attack, and made it very, very difficult for them, like you say, where it's even with 10 men they were struggling to make the pitch big.
It's tough for Valour, because I feel like their performance wasn't poor. It still kind of shows what they've been able to work on in the last few weeks, in the last 3-4 games. But again, it was just lacking just that little bit. And against tougher sides, you won't be able to have those opportunities that they were given in
No,
this match, which will
no.
make it even more difficult. And I mean, it was a 6-pointer
Yeah.
for both Vancouver and Valour FC. If Valour would have won it, they would have been level points with Vancouver. Now Vancouver have a nice 6-point cushion over them.
Mm.
It makes it tough to kind of, you know, be positive about it afterwards from a Valor perspective. But there were some things that were good from Valor, and when Temi Antonago can come back, he'll be a world of difference for Valor FC. But yeah, it does feel like it was a missed opportunity for them to really capitalize on the form that they've had as of lately to throw themselves
Mm.
back into the playoff fight, which is something that I'll be honest, I never thought that I would mention this
Especially as the
season.
season started,
Yeah.
and then they're on the road. Like, but yeah, it's
Exactly, to for them to be in this position. So credit to Phil Dos Santos and to the players
mm,
to be able to put themselves. But yeah, missed opportunity, missed
yeah.
window for Valour FC, and for Vancouver FC a little bit of breathing room. Now
Mm.
we'll see if they can make good on it, because they have some tough couple of games left in the last 8 matches. Vancouver FC only 3 home matches in the entirety, but they're actually playing better away. So I think this is actually better for
Yeah.
them. I don't know why, but at home they just seem to choke. So
There's a
maybe it's
crowd
better
there.
that they only have
Oh, that's a
3.
dick.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm the bad luck charm. Every time I go, they've been losing as of lately. But then again, they were losing when I was gone in Ontario anyway, so
Yeah.
clearly isn't me. But that is it for the weekly roundup for match day 20 in the CPL. Don't switch the channel off yet, because we're going to do a little bit of a CanChamp preview. We have
Back.
2 matches, 2 second legs of the Canadian Championship semi-final. If you forgot that there was a second leg, I don't blame you. It was 7 weeks apart from the first one.
It's almost last season.
Yeah, I know, right? It feels like it was a lifetime ago already. But yes, the second leg of the Canadian Championship semifinals are taking place this week. First up is the Vancouver Whitecaps facing Pacific FC at BC Place. So we'll talk quickly about that before moving on to the TFC Forge FC second leg. Very tough for Pacific FC for them to get back into this one. Do you think that they have a chance, especially given the form that they're on, the fact that they're at BC
Mm.
Place? I think the only thing that kind of got going for them is that the Whitecaps have been on a pretty hefty break since the end of Leagues Cup, and they
Yeah.
had their match against LAFC this past weekend postponed because of Leagues Cup. So
Yeah.
they're kind of going cold into this match compared to Pacific, who have been warm by by playing in the league the last few weeks.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it's nice of the Canadian Championship not to let these MLS sides build up momentum going into the second leg. So the dominance of that. But yeah, it's going to be super difficult. Bigger pitch, more like they're going to be under a lot of pressure. Got the team. I don't think Vancouver will rest quite as many players as they did in that first game. Because like you say, they want to build up their momentum and they want to get their match sharpness back for MLS as well. So I think it's going to be incredibly tough for Pacific to really. I mean, if they come out of this with an acceptable sort of result, I think that's all you can really ask for going into this one.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, for Pacific, you could say, let's get this over with so we can focus on the league play and trying to get back into playoffs. But on the other hand, this is really the only opportunity that they're going to have for any silverware.
Yeah, it's
In the
kind of a
season.
free hit for them, the players, isn't it? Like, you're not expected to go to win, so maybe the pressure's off them. They might play a little bit better, possibly.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe, and it could provide that opportunity to, if you have a good performance, even if you don't win, but if you have a good performance, that'll give you some confidence going into these last 8 matches of the
Exactly.
season.
Mm.
So I think this could be a big game for Pacific, even if the odds are not in their favor. And I think, it is a bigger pitch, but maybe that'll help. Maybe that's why Kunle Luke wasn't on. Maybe now at BC Place, he'll have even more room to run down the wing on the right side. So maybe that'll help them a little bit too.
Yeah,
But
that's nice.
yeah, overall, I don't think it's going to be a very easy match for Pacific. Going to put you on the spot here. What's your prediction for this match ahead of the game?
I like to think Pacific will play quite well, so I'm going to go 2-0 for Whitecaps, just because of the quality and the in Pacific are much better on the they're used to the smaller pitch. I just think Vancouver will we'll just pull them apart a little bit too many times, and but hopefully Gazdov will get the chance to start again in this one rather than Sean Melvin, and we'll see him performing incredibly against the MLS quality attack.
Yeah. Well, you stole a scoreline straight out of my mouth too, because I had a 2-0
Really?
as well. Yeah, because I can't see Pacific FC scoring. I just
No,
can't.
yeah. So it'd be nice to see the defense play well again.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it'll be probably 2-0. I think if they keep it to 1-0 or 0-0, that'll be super good for them. And they'll look quite poor on the Whitecaps. So I think trying to just keep it as respectable as possible is probably best case scenario for Pacific. So yeah, I'm going to say 2-0 as well for this match. But now going on to probably the more exciting of the two semifinals is Toronto FC hosting Forge FC at BMO Field. Now, this one, if you remember from all those weeks ago, Forge FC go into this with a lead, a 2-1 lead after a very impressive game. Tim Hortons Field. They will be probably still gutted that they conceded that away goal to Toronto FC, because it's a very different match now. If it would have stayed 2-0, it would have been so much more pressure on Toronto FC. But now Forge, really what they got to focus on is obviously not conceding, but more than anything, get that away goal. I think ideally, if you're Forge FC, you try to break fast sometime in the first half and get a counterattack goal and then defend for your lives for the rest of these 70, 60 minutes. That is the match, and maybe get a second on the break as well. But yeah, I think we talk about, CanChamp not allowing certain teams to build momentum. In a sense, Toronto FC have sort of built momentum, because the last time that they faced Toronto FC were on like a 6-game losing run.
Yeah.
But now they've actually won a few games. They're not as terrible. So do you think form will kind of play into this one now that Toronto FC are not as bad as they were when these two teams first met?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be a very different game to the last one, and I'm really interested to see the lineup Forge go with. I think Kwasi Poku caused the Toronto defense some issues, sort of breaking sort of in those counter-attacking styles, and Jordan Hamilton's not the same kind of player, and I'm curious what you think. I mean, part of me is like, they're going to defend quite a lot in this game. Would you put Badi Banga or Ampoma or someone with just pace like at centre forward, and just like, right, okay, well, when we get the chance and they're going to be pushing up, they're going to be dealing with us, right, ball over the top, hit the channels, and then let's just fly on the counter attack. I'm not sure what Bobby's going to go with, but yeah, it's going to be I think it's going to be a really interesting one.
Yeah, honestly, I would probably go with that if I were Bobby. I would probably put Badi Bangar and Palma, the striker, and then have the other on the wing, and then probably Chouanier as well, and just try to break quickly with those three. That those three can break well, and obviously with Becker and Borges pulling the strings in the midfield.
Yeah,
Hajabrapor kind of holding things down as the anchor. I think that's probably best case scenario, in my opinion. I do feel like, I know Alemana Cisse got injured against York United, but if he can play, I think he could be a big difference for them too, because he's both physical but also quite like good attacking wise. He's quite quick and quite like skillful. So maybe he could be a good impact player as well for them. But yeah, I think they're going to be very much playing unforged like, which is not dominating possession, unless they do, which would be amazing, but probably not. But yeah, what would you say your prediction for this one is? This is much tougher than the last one.
Yeah, I want to be positive, and I'm going to go 1-1.
Dang it! You stole my prediction.
You're kidding.
God damn. I was like thinking, I was like, I'm going to go for a 1-1. I'm going to hope that Forge get a goal. Toronto will probably score one, but they'll go through 3-2 scoreline. Sorry, folks. No difference of opinion. Clearly, we talk too much about the CPL.
Yeah,
We have the same ideas and predictions. But go ahead, explain why you think that it is 1-1, and then I'll probably just echo your statements.
Yeah, I'd like to think that Forge will just really just wind up Toronto, like that the Toronto will keep making chances and they'll keep trying to attack, but Forge will just get bodies in the way and they'll break and put them under a little bit of pressure with speed and then force Toronto back a little bit. And if they can get that first goal, it's a cup competition. I want to be positive.
Yeah, me too. I want to be positive. I mean, I would love it for Forge FC. Maybe a little bit from a personal point of view as well, but love it for Forge FC to be in the final. But then I'm in the uncomfortable situation where it'll be Whitecaps against Forge FC. And then it's like my MLS.
Go to CPL team.
Yeah, my MLS darling against a CPL team, and especially Forge that I have history with too. It'll be a fun one for the CPL final. That now has been decided. I forget when exactly it is, but Canada Soccer released the date for when it's going to be. It's going to be September 25th, so a month from yesterday.
Yeah,
and it will either be at BC Place or Starlight Stadium. So likely BC Place. So I will likely be there. I mean, I'll probably be there either way. But BC Place, I will probably be there for the Canadian Championship final, and hopefully Forge FC will be battling out with the Whitecaps there as well. But that is all for this week's episode. Thank you so much once again for listening. Hopefully you guys are happy to have us back to our regular scheduled programming. Make sure to follow us once again on all of our socials at Coast to Coast FC, so you can let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Do you agree with our predictions with Canadian Championship final? Do you agree with the points we made on all four of the matches? Go ahead and shout us out and leave us a comment, and we would love to read what you have. But until next time, I'm Felipe Ojejo.
And I'm Mike Rice.
And this has been Coast to Coast FC, signing out.